New planet, old flame. My alien guide was my ex-wife, and desire rekindled. The unexpected assignment, Doctor. Liam Archer drummed his fingers against the viewport as the shuttle descended through Nexara's violet atmosphere. After 15 years, cataloging extraterrestrial life across 17 planets, he thought he'd seen it all. But Nexara was different. A world of floating islands and bioluminescent forests that defied conventional biology. The Galactic Research Institute had been clear. This mission was crucial for understanding adaptable ecosystems. Approaching Nexara Research Station, announced the pilot. Prepare for landing, Dr. Archer. Liam gathered his equipment, mentally reviewing the mission parameters. 6 weeks on Nexara, partnered with a native scientist to document the planet's unique flora. Simple enough. The GRI briefing had been oddly vague about his research partner, just that they were Nexaran and highly qualified. The shuttle touched down with a gentle thud. Liam stepped onto the landing platform, immediately struck by Nexara's lighter gravity and sweet, spiced air. The research station was elegant, a series of curved structures that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than impose upon it. Dr. Archer. A melodious voice stopped him in his tracks. He turned slowly, a chill racing down his spine. Standing before him was a tall, willowy figure with luminous purple skin that caught the light like polished amethyst. Her large, almond-shaped eyes were the color of burnished gold, and the familiar constellation of darker violet freckles across her cheeks confirmed his suspicion before she even spoke her name. Nylari, he whispered. It's been 7 years, 3 months, and 12 days, she said, her expression unreadable. Though I suspect you weren't counting. But he had been. Every day since she disappeared from the diplomatic station on Taris, prime without explanation, just a cryptic message about duty and impossibilities. They'd been together for 11 months, planning a future across their different worlds before she vanished. I wasn't informed you'd be my research partner, he managed, trying to keep his voice professional despite the thundering of his heart. The assignment came directly from my government, she replied, gesturing toward the main facility. Your belongings have been taken to your quarters. We should discuss the expedition parameters. Liam followed her into a laboratory filled with specimens and holographic maps. She moved with the same fluid grace he remembered, her fingers, 5 on each hand, just like a human's despite her alien biology, manipulating the controls with practiced precision. Our first expedition leaves tomorrow at dawn, she explained, not meeting his eyes. We'll be exploring the floating islands in the Lumera Basin. The flora there exhibits remarkable adaptive properties. Nylari, he interrupted. We can't just pretend. Yes, we can, she said firmly. This research is too important. What happened between us was a mistake born of different circumstances. A mistake. The word stung worse than he had expected. Fine. Professional it is. They spent the next hour reviewing maps and equipment in tense silence. Occasionally their hands would brush as they reached for the same tool, sending an electric current through Liam's body that he fought to ignore. That night in his quarters, Liam unpacked his equipment, methodically organizing his research tools. When he reached the bottom of his bag, his fingers touched something smooth. A small violet stone Nylari had given him years ago, a piece of her homeworld he'd carried everywhere since. He'd told himself it was for scientific interest, but the truth was far more sentimental. Tomorrow they would begin their expedition. 6 weeks of close proximity with the woman who had shattered his heart. As Nexara's 3 moons cast prismatic light through his window, Liam wondered what secrets Nylari was hiding, and whether this mysterious world might finally provide the answers he'd spent 7 years searching for, the wounds that haven't healed. The dawn on Nexara brought cascades of crimson light filtering through the atmosphere, creating a blood-red haze over the floating islands of the Lumera Basin. Liam adjusted his pack as he waited at the landing pad, where a small research vessel would take them to the first study site. When Nylari approached, she wore the traditional field garb of Nexaran scientists, a close-fitting bodysuit of iridescent material that seemed to respond to her movements, shifting in subtle patterns of deep purple and midnight blue. The Lumera Basin can be unpredictable, she explained, handing him a breathing apparatus. The floating islands rotate in response to electromagnetic currents. What anchors them defies conventional physics. Like many things on your world, Liam replied, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from his voice. Her golden eyes flickered to his face, then away. The past is the past, Liam. Is it? You vanished without explanation. 7 years of silence, and now we're supposed to work together as if nothing happened? The small vessel hummed to life beneath them as Nylari took the controls. Perhaps it was a mistake to agree to this partnership, she said quietly, but there are few xenobiologists with your expertise in adaptable ecosystems. They soared over crystalline waters toward the first of the floating landmasses, a verdant island suspended 100 meters above the surface, trailing vines like anchors that never quite reached the water below. As they landed on its edge, Liam's scientific curiosity temporarily overshadowed his emotional turmoil. The island was a riot of life, plants that shifted color as shadows passed over them, flowers that seemed to sing in harmonic tones when brushed by the wind. For hours they worked in strained silence, collecting samples, recording observations, maintaining a careful distance. These cellular structures, Liam muttered, examining a specimen through his portable analyzer. They're unlike anything I've documented, the way they communicate with each other, almost like a neural network. The entire ecosystem of Nexara is connected, Nylari said, kneeling beside a pulsing blue flower. Our scientists believe the planet itself may be sentient in ways we cannot fully comprehend. Is that why you left? The question escaped before he could stop it. Because your world called you back? Her hands stilled. It wasn't that simple. A sudden tremor shook the island, sending them both stumbling. Nylari reached out instinctively, catching Liam before he could fall over the edge. For a moment they were pressed together, her body warm against his, her scent, like night-blooming flowers and distant lightning, enveloping him in memories. The island is shifting, she whispered, pulling away first. We need to move inward. They hurried toward the center as the floating landmass began rotating slowly. Finding shelter beneath a canopy of luminescent trees, they watched as the landscape rearranged itself around them. You never answered my messages, Liam said finally, as darkness fell and they set up their research camp. Not one. Nylari's expression softened in the glow of their portable heater. I couldn't. There were. Complications. Complications, he echoed. That's all I get after what we shared? What we shared was beautiful, she replied, her voice catching. But there were factors you couldn't understand. My position in the scientific council, the traditions of my people. Your people seemed fine with our relationship when we were together on Taris Prime. They weren't, she said simply. I was ordered to return. To end things with you. Liam stared at her, the pain of 7 years crystallizing into anger. And you always follow orders? When disobeying them would have consequences beyond myself? Yes. She looked away, into the strange forest surrounding them. I had responsibilities you knew nothing about. The night deepened around them, filled with the soft luminescence of alien flora. As temperatures dropped, they were forced to move their sleeping arrangements closer to the heat source, their proximity an exquisite torture of remembered intimacy. In the darkness, Liam heard her breathing change, sensing she was still awake. I deserved more than silence, he said softly. Yes, she admitted after a long pause. You did, but sometimes the kindest cut is the cleanest. As he drifted into uneasy sleep, Liam couldn't help wondering what tomorrow would bring, not just in their research but in the space between them where trust had once flourished and now lay in ruins, like a garden waiting for someone brave enough to begin replanting. Secrets among the stars. By the third day of their expedition, storm clouds gathered over the Lumera basin. Not ordinary clouds, but swirling vortices of electric blue and violet that pulsed with internal lightning. Liam and Nylari worked furiously to collect final samples from the floating island before the weather made evacuation necessary. We need to leave, Nylari insisted as the wind picked up, whipping her silver-streaked hair around her face. Nexaran thunderstorms can last for days, and the electromagnetic discharge interferes with navigation systems. Liam secured his specimen container. The research vessel won't make it back to base in this. Is there shelter nearby? She hesitated, then pointed to a distant floating island larger than the others and seemingly more stable. There are ruins there, remnants of an ancient Nexaran civilization. They're sturdy enough to withstand the storm. The journey to the ruins was harrowing, their small vessel buffeted by winds that seemed alive with purpose. When they finally landed, rain began falling. Not water, but a luminescent liquid that sizzled softly where it touched the ground. Don't let it touch your skin, Nylari warned as they ran for the shelter of the ruins. Massive stone structures covered in spiraling glyphs that glowed faintly in response to the storm. Inside, they found a circular chamber with a domed ceiling, surprisingly intact. Liam set up their emergency shelter while Nylari activated heat sources. The sound of the storm outside created an oddly intimate atmosphere, isolating them from the rest of Nexara. These ruins, Liam said, examining the glyphs, they're beautiful. They tell the history of my people, Nylari replied, her voice soft. The ancient Nexarans believed we were born from the consciousness of the planet itself, that we are its eyes and hands helping it understand the universe. Is that what you believe? She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen since his arrival. I'm a scientist, Liam, but there is much about Nexara that science alone cannot explain. As night fell, the storm intensified. They sat close to the heat source, sharing a meal of emergency rations. The tension between them had shifted from anger to something more complicated, a recognition of unfinished business. There's something I need to show you, Nylari said suddenly, reaching into a hidden pocket in her bodysuit. She withdrew a small device and activated it, projecting a hologram into the space between them. A small Nexaran child appeared, perhaps 3 years old, with delicate purple skin and eyes that were unmistakably like Nylari's. But the child's features carried echoes of another face, one Liam knew intimately. His heart stopped. Is that our daughter? Nylari said, her voice barely audible over the storm. Lyria. The world seemed to tilt beneath him. How is that possible? We were told our species couldn't. Conventional wisdom was wrong. It's exceedingly rare but possible. I discovered I was pregnant after returning to Nexara. The scientific council was concerned. No human Nexaran child had ever been born before. They ordered me to terminate the pregnancy. But you didn't, Liam whispered, unable to look away from the image of the child, his child. I couldn't. I went into hiding until she was born. When the council saw her, they recognized her potential, a bridge between our species. But they had conditions. Nylari's golden eyes filled with tears. I couldn't contact you. They feared human involvement would complicate matters. Lyria is considered precious, the first of her kind. You kept her from me for 7 years, Liam said, emotions warring within him, anger, wonder, loss, and something like hope. I wanted to tell you so many times, she admitted. When I learned you'd been assigned to this mission, I requested to be your partner. I couldn't bear the silence anymore. The hologram flickered as lightning struck nearby. In the blue-violet glow, Liam saw the truth in her eyes, the pain of separation, the weight of secrets. Where is she now? He asked. With my sister in the capital city. If you want to meet her after our research is complete, that could be arranged. Outside, the storm raged, but within the ancient chamber, something shifted between them, a possibility neither had dared hope for. As the night deepened, they talked about their daughter, about the years lost, about the future that had once seemed impossible and now hung before them like a distant star, challenging them to chart a course toward it. The heart's memory morning broke with unexpected clarity, the storm having passed during the night. Sunlight filtered through cracks in the ancient dome, casting prismatic patterns across the chamber floor where Liam and Nylari had fallen asleep beside each other, not touching but closer than they had been in 7 years. Liam woke first, watching the gentle rise and fall of Nylari's chest as she slept. The revelation about their daughter still reverberated through him, anger and wonder battling for dominance. A child, his child, a possibility he'd never considered during their time together, and now a reality that changed everything. When Nylari stirred, her golden eyes meeting his, the air between them felt charged with unspoken emotions. We should return to the research vessel, she said softly, There's a phenomenon I want to show you, the stellar cascade. It only occurs once every 3 cycles when Nexara's 3 moons align. They gathered their equipment in silence, each lost in private thoughts. The journey back to their vessel was brief, the morning air sweet with the aftermath of the storm. As they flew toward their next research site, a secluded valley nestled between 3 floating islands, Liam finally voiced the question that had kept him awake. "Why now, Nylari? Why tell me about Lyria after all this time?" Her hands stilled on the controls. "Because she's asking about you. Children on Nexara develop consciousness of their dual heritage early. She knows she's half human and she wants to know her father." She paused. "And because I never stopped." She cut herself off, focusing intently on navigating between the floating landmasses. The valley they landed in was unlike anything Liam had ever seen, a natural amphitheater where crystalline structures emerged from the ground like frozen fountains, their surfaces reflecting the sky in kaleidoscopic patterns. The air was thick with floating pollen that glimmered like stardust. "The stellar cascade will begin at sunset," Nylari explained as they set up their research equipment. "When the moons align, the crystals respond to the gravitational shift. It's as if they're singing." Throughout the day, they worked together documenting the valley's unique flora, falling into the easy rhythm they'd once shared as research partners and lovers. The tension remained, but alongside it grew something else, a tentative bridge across the chasm of their separation. "These evolutionary adaptations," Liam said, examining a flower that changed color in response to his touch. "They're remarkable. Almost as if the plant is communicating," Nylari finished. "That's the theory many Nexaran scientists hold, that our ecosystem has developed a form of collective consciousness." Their fingers brushed as they both reached for the same specimen container. Neither pulled away immediately, the contact sending memories cascading through Liam's mind. Of nights spent beneath unfamiliar stars, of her laughter, of the way her skin had felt against his. As the sun began its descent, Nylari led him to a natural platform overlooking the crystal formations. Above them, Nexara's 3 moons became visible in the darkening sky, slowly moving toward alignment. "Lyria has your eyes," Nylari said suddenly, "the same shade of green, and your curiosity. She asks questions about everything." Liam's throat tightened. "I've missed 7 years of her life." "Yes," Nylari acknowledged. "But she could have many hundreds more. Nexaran human lifespans are unknown territory." The first moon slipped into alignment and a low humming began emanating from the crystals. As the second moon joined it, the humming deepened, resonating through the ground beneath them. "I never stopped loving you," Nylari whispered, her eyes fixed on the moons. "Leaving was the hardest choice I ever made." The third moon aligned and the world transformed. The crystals began to glow from within, pulsing with colors that shouldn't exist, their surfaces vibrating to produce harmonies that seemed to speak directly to the soul. The floating pollen in the air began to dance in intricate patterns, creating miniature galaxies around them. "It's beautiful," Liam breathed, but he wasn't looking at the phenomenon anymore. His eyes were on Nylari, her purple skin luminous in the light of the aligned moons, her expression unguarded for the first time since his arrival. "The Nexarans call this Kesharan," she said. "The moment of truth between hearts." Without conscious thought, Liam reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined, 5 against 5, a perfect fit despite their different origins. Nylari turned to him, tears reflecting the crystal light. "I should have fought harder," she whispered. "For us." The distance between them vanished as Liam drew her close. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home after a long journey, familiar yet new, tentative yet certain. Her body melded against his as it always had, the years falling away in the face of a connection that transcended time and space. Under the aligned moons, surrounded by singing crystals and dancing light, they rediscovered each other. Layers of clothing were slowly shed as they explored the changes time had wrought on their bodies. Liam traced the new constellation of freckles across her shoulders, while Nylari's fingers found scars she didn't recognize on his skin. Their reunion was gentle at first, then urgent. 7 years of longing compressed into touches and whispers. In the otherworldly light of the stellar cascade, they moved together in perfect harmony, 2 beings from different worlds finding their shared rhythm once more. Afterward, they lay entwined on their discarded clothes, watching the moons begin their slow separation. What happens now? Liam asked, running his fingers through her silver-streaked hair. Now, Nylari said, resting her head on his chest. We finish our research, and then I take you to meet your daughter. As the crystal song faded and the last of the light show dimmed, they remained together, planning a future neither had dared hope for just days before. A future that somehow encompassed two different worlds, and the child who belonged to both. New Horizons, the final weeks of their expedition passed in a blur of scientific discovery and personal reconnection. By day, they documented Nexara's extraordinary biodiversity. By night, they shared stories of the years spent apart. Liam learned about Lyria's first words, her precocious interest in both human and Nexaran cultures, her inherited talent for xenobiology. With each new detail, his eagerness to meet his daughter grew. However, their idyll was shattered 3 days before their scheduled return to the research station. An urgent communication from the Nexaran Scientific Council interrupted their morning preparations. An atmospheric anomaly has been detected over the Lumera Basin, the council representative explained, her holographic image flickering with concern. Our instruments indicate a potential collapse of the electromagnetic field supporting the floating islands. Nylari's face paled to a lighter shade of purple. Projected time frame? 48 hours at most. We're evacuating all research teams, but your vessel carries specialized equipment that could help us understand the phenomenon. The council requests that you gather data before returning. After the transmission ended, Nylari turned to Liam, her expression grave. This is unprecedented. The floating islands have been stable for millennia. Could it be related to the crystal formations we documented? The vibrational frequencies during the stellar cascade were intense. Possibly. She began recalibrating their instruments. But we need to move quickly. If those islands fall, the impact could devastate the basin ecosystem. They spent the day flying between islands, collecting atmospheric readings and soil samples. As night fell, the evidence became clear. The islands were indeed slowly descending. The invisible forces that had kept them aloft for centuries somehow disrupted. Look at these readings, Liam said, analyzing their data in the vessel's small laboratory. The electromagnetic resonance has shifted. It's almost as if he stopped, a radical theory forming. As if what? Nylari pressed. As if the planet is deliberately changing its patterns. You said Nexarans believe the world has consciousness. What if this isn't a collapse but an evolution? A deliberate reorganization? Nylari's eyes widened. That would contradict everything we understand about planetary formation, but she examined his findings. The pattern here isn't chaotic. It's structured, like a pulse. They worked through the night, combining Liam's knowledge of adaptable ecosystems with Nylari's understanding of Nexaran geomagnetic fields. By dawn, they had formulated a theory that would change xenobiological science forever. That Nexara was not simply a planet with life, but a living entity itself, constantly evolving in response to its own needs and the needs of the creatures dwelling upon it. We need to transmit these findings immediately, Nylari said, preparing their communication array. If we're right, evacuation is unnecessary. The islands aren't falling. They're being repositioned to create new channels for atmospheric circulation. As she worked, Liam watched her. The concentration in her golden eyes, the graceful movements of her hands, the subtle iridescence of her purple skin in the morning light. Love swelled within him, stronger than before, tempered by loss and rekindled by understanding. The council is responding, Nylari announced. They're sending a research team to verify our findings, but they're suspending the evacuation order. Relief washed over them both. As the tension of the crisis ebbed, Liam took Nylari's hands in his. I've been thinking about what happens after we return, he said. About Lyria and you and us. Nylari's expression softened. And what have you decided? That I want to be part of her life, part of your life, no matter what it takes. My research contract with the Galactic Institute is flexible. I could base myself on Nexara, continue my work here. The council might not approve, she warned. Human residence on Nexara is still rare. Then we'll change their minds, Liam said with determination. Our daughter is living proof that our species can coexist. And now our research suggests that Nexara itself is evolving. Perhaps it's time for Nexaran society to evolve too. Nylari smiled, the same smile that had captured his heart years ago on Terrace Prime. Always the revolutionary, she murmured, leaning in to kiss him. It won't be easy. The best discoveries never are, he replied against her lips. 3 days later, they landed at the research station to a hero's welcome. Their theory had been confirmed. Nexara was indeed repositioning its floating islands to adapt to changing atmospheric conditions, a planetary-scale evolution never before documented. But the true test came the following day, when Nylari led Liam to her private quarters where a small figure waited, a child with delicate purple skin, silver-streaked black hair, and eyes the exact shade of emerald green as his own. Lyria, Nylari said softly in her native tongue, then switched to Universal Standard. This is your father. The girl regarded him solemnly for a moment, then smiled, a perfect blend of her mother's radiance and his own questioning intensity. I have been studying human biology, she said in carefully pronounced Standard, her voice musical like her mother's. Your DNA combined with mother's to create me. A scientific improbability. Liam knelt to her level, his heart overflowing. The universe is full of beautiful improbabilities, he said, offering his hand. Lyria took it without hesitation, her small fingers, 5 on each hand like both her parents, wrapping around his. Will you teach me about earth plants? Mother says they don't communicate like Nexaran plants. I'll teach you everything I know, Liam promised, meeting Nylari's gaze over their daughter's head. In her golden eyes he saw the future unfolding. Challenges and discoveries, struggles and joys, a life-bridging worlds just as their daughter did. That evening, the 3 of them stood on a balcony watching Nexara's 3 moons rise. The floating islands of the Lumera Basin were visible in the distance, now stabilized in their new configurations. Lyria sat on Liam's shoulders, asking endless questions about Earth's single moon, while Nylari's hand rested comfortably in his. A new horizon, Nylari murmured, leaning against him as their daughter chattered above. For all of us, Liam agreed, knowing that the greatest discovery of his career wasn't the living planet beneath their feet, but the family he had found, and found again, among the stars.